my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, sing. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
Howdy, howdy, howdy. It is I, Jesse Blaze Snyder, the coolest geek alive. And I'm coming at you with a coolest, well, I guess it's a coolest pick. Because I thought the show had come out a while ago, but I guess, man, time like is creeping slowly, I guess. Or at least, maybe it's an illusion, I guess, that it came out a long time ago. But there was this show on TV for a while called Dark Side of the Ring. I always wanted to watch it. I have a lot of friends who are really big into wrestling. I was a little bit of a fan of wrestling when I was younger. I'm still a big fan of the Royal Rumbles. I really like the Royal Rumbles. And, you know, I have some characters that I liked from the 80s and whatnot, and there's some characters that I like. And over the years, you know, I've had friends who were big into wrestling, and so I've been a little bit of like a fair weather fan. And I have a lot of friends, really, genuinely, as I got older, who were really big into wrestling. And more, I got more and more into wrestling, but from a behind-the-scenes standpoint. And really, that's what I'm here to recommend to you today. The behind-the-scenes of professional wrestling is 1,000 times more interesting than any fucking match they have ever put on. The matches, who gives a shit? I don't care. The matches, the gimmicks, the fucking promos. I mean, sometimes some of the promos can be kind of fun and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I don't give a shit. However, the behind the scenes of the wrestling world, the stories that come out of that sphere are just insane. Insane. I mean, I did an episode on Vince McMahon and all of the wrestlers that I suspect that he had killed and that I want investigated because this man is clearly a fucking psychopath. The stories of him, I mean, the stories of all the different wrestlers, there's just so many different types of people, so much different stuff going on in that world. Because essentially, wrestling is not exactly fake, but predetermined. The outcomes are predetermined, and essentially, these people are way more like actors who do a really athletic dance and performance, on TV, and with an outcome designed to get like the best reaction out of the crowd. But it's even more than that, because the part that they're playing is intricately tied into them and their own life. So they have to create these characters that kind of take on lives of themselves. And the egos and fucking backstabbing and all the shit that goes on within the freaking wrestling community is just next level insanity. Okay? Next level insanity. There's a free app on like Roku and whatever called Tubi, Tubi, and right now a bunch of Dark Side of the Ring is available to watch for free. There's even actually a newer program called Dark Side of the Ring Confidential, which I'm about to start watching now for myself because I want to watch it. But I'd been wanting to watch Dark Side of the Ring before, and I basically got to watch like 2 whole seasons that are available on Tubi for free. And it's so great. So many different levels of why it's so fucking great. A lot of these stories are stories that I already had heard before, but it's just some excellent depictions of, tellings of these stories or whatever. They have a lot of really good people being interviewed, who were there, who really care, really know deeply about all of these subjects. And it's so interesting. To just give you like a hint, as I like to do, is without like spoiling all of the details of so many of these great stories. I'm just going to tell you one. these stories are great. There's really just every single one of them is just really interesting, compelling. My buddy Digger, he was painting while I was watching this the other day, and it's the things that'll be said in passing just so compelling. He just say, "Did they just say? Did he just say what? What did he just say?" Like, he just kept trying to go, "What? What happened?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's nutty." So, just to kind of take a little glimpse through the first 2 seasons, which is what I just watched this week, and just give you like a little bit of an idea of what you might have to look forward to in the course of the series. And apparently there's actually 6 seasons of this show. So, if you get excited and, you finish the 2 seasons that I'm going to be talking to you about right here, there's plenty more seasons to go. And the stories in the fucking wrestling world are just, they legion. They just keep going. There's just so many wrestlers you never heard of, or little townships that you never heard of, or some little thing that happened that you never heard of. But some of this stuff in the first 2 seasons are some of the best, including the life, death, and relationship, or life, relationship, and death of Miss Elizabeth, who, if you were like me and you were growing up in the 80s, which is when I was a fan of the wrestling during the superpowers, the mega powers, when Macho Man and Hulk Hogan were teaming up and then eventually fighting over Macho Man's girl, Miss Elizabeth. Now, Macho Man was like sort of like an anti-hero heel, and he used to mistreat Miss Elizabeth, who was very nice and buttoned up, so that the audience would hate him. So much of what you're experiencing in wrestling in general, the gimmicks are based around getting the audience to pop. There's all sorts of terminology and whatnot that you'll hear when you check out these shows, things like kayfabe, and that mean basically covering up things for the marks, the people who are out in the audience who are fans of the thing and are believing what's going on. But for the people on the inside who know what's really going on, who know the true story, who know the narrative, it's just so much more interesting and so much more compelling. And the story of Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth it's sad and interesting, and one of those kind of things of art imitating life imitating art. There's a lot of that goes on. Vince McMahon in particular is very fond of like bringing in aspects of reality from the outside that might, paint a certain picture or might be real, to the situation in general. Something like not like an affair, but like them getting married, and then the idea that Macho Man's jealous. Well, yeah, Macho Man, he was very nervous about her being in this community, and he did have jealousy things. And the storyline that plays out between Macho Man and Hulk, really led to some bad mojo in that world. And Macho Man seems like such a great guy. It's such a terrible freaking story. So many of these stories are awful, honestly. And so does Miss Elizabeth. And that's kind of the tough thing, is or maybe the reason why I like it as much as I do, because these stories deserve to be told. They're really interesting, compelling people who are living really interesting lives and putting their bodies on the line and hurting themselves. As somebody who's dealt with chronic pain, for a long part of my life, I finally just today told my mom that, for the first time in a long time, I'm not actually feeling chronic pain. I feel pain occasionally from some of the injuries that I still am dealing with a little bit, but not chronic. But that chronic pain situation has really keyed me up to identify with and feel the pain, have a lot of empathy for these wrestlers and, athletes in general. But these wrestlers, man, because they're athletes and they're actors and they're people. There's just such an interesting crossroads of circumstance and insanity that happens in this world of professional wrestling. And I'm telling you, it's worth your time to just put this on and just start delving into it a little bit. The second episode of Dark Side of the Ring is about one of the most infamous chapters of WWE history or wrestling history, which has come to be known as the Montreal Screwjob. The Montreal Screwjob basically was a stealing of a championship belt from one of my favorite wrestlers, Bret Hart. Bret Hart's a Canadian dude, and basically he was leaving to another company, and because of a whole bunch of things that were going on with him and Shawn Michaels, he wasn't exactly willing to drop the belt to him, and nothing had been done to make it so that he would be comfortable dropping the belt to him, and then they orchestrated it so they could just screw him over. And, oh man, I mean, you get a fucking confrontation between Bret Hart and Vince McMahon and all sorts of fucking sour grapes about all that shit. The Montreal Screwjob story is interesting. It's a cool one. Granted, the Montreal Screwjob kind of pales in comparison to a lot of the stories that you will see. And I have a little bit of like a love-hate situation with some of these stories being told, because I don't believe a lot of the narratives. I skipped the episodes about Chris Benoit because I know enough about the Chris Benoit situation that I think I don't believe that he did hurt his family. I don't believe that he did. I don't believe that he would. I don't believe he was that kind of guy. It's, you want to talk to the WWE, it's very black and white. He's a murderer and all this stuff. But if you want to go and investigate that story, there's a lot of inconvenient details that don't really make any sense. A lot of really weird things. I got to talk about this when I had done that Vince McMahon episode, and I was just fucking ranting about the fact that I really do believe that he has orchestrated the death of many of his wrestlers. I suspect that he is a Mason or Illuminati or in one of these secret societies, and the idea of sacrifices is something they do. And literally, this guy's heading up the fucking Gladiator show where he controls the outcome and controls all these situations. If somebody was going to be put in a position to be sacrificing fucking gladiators on live TV, it's Vince McMahon. And now, after, holy shit, spending a good 8 hours absorbing the 3 different ways, and I'm sure there's more than that, who have at length put their story out there about what Vince McMahon did to them and what kind of person he really is. I do not put it past Vince McMahon to be involved in shady, secret darkness like that. Not for a fucking second. So I wanted to say that because I want to say that, like case in point, I was watching a different show that was related to the wrestling thing. I think it was produced by WWE, and it was on Randy Savage. It was a different episode, different program, basically telling the same story, and they really went out of their way to make Randy look bad. And I know enough about the behind the scenes shit because I'm very interested in the behind the scenes stuff to know that he really didn't deserve that. And that was a choice that they made to paint him the way they did. And so often there are these people who they will paint that way, and then all of a sudden they'll Hall of Fame them. They'll kick them out. They accuse them of all these things. They are in such a powerful position that they can just do whatever the fuck they want to these people whose names they often own in so many things. So take it all with a grain of salt and know that if you get interested in any of these stories, you will be able to go and do a quick little Google search on YouTube or whatever else, and you will find more, lots more. And like I said, you may be like me, and you're like, I never been a big wrestling fan or whatever. Me either. The behind the scenes of wrestling is like just the most compelling shit you will ever hear. Episode number 3 of the first season was fucking great. And I was like, I'm watching this whole show. It is the killing of Bruiser Brody. And this is one of those stories that I didn't really know about particularly. I knew that Bruiser Brody had died. I think I knew that maybe he got stabbed. And I knew a little bit about Bruiser Brody, that he was a real interesting character and, somebody who was very beloved, and it was a big tragic loss. But oh man, the fucking story of Bruiser Brody. And essentially Bruiser Brody was like trying to buy in to, I think it was in Puerto Rico. Don't hold me to that, but it was outside of America. It was a wrestling territory, and he was buying into it, or allegedly, and they fucking killed him. Stabbed him in broad daylight. The friend of his who brought him to the hospital came back. This guy who killed him, who stabbed him, who the friend witnessed the stabbing. He said he's just putting on his boots in the back room like nothing happened. And he's like, yo, that's the guy who killed the dude. And everybody was telling different stories. Nobody saw a knife. Nobody except for this one guy. And this one guy who was his friend who brought Bruiser Brody to the hospital, he gave a statement to the police, all this stuff. He was never called in to testify. Never called in to testify. Some fucking shady shit. Sounds to me like in Puerto Rico or wherever the fuck it was, they went, we're not going to let this fucking American asshole fucking come in here and stab. And then they covered up for them, for their people. Like, whoa. The early days of wrestling in general, and I mean really how this shit was going on. I mean, it's so funny because they're like, wrestling's fake. This shit ain't fucking fake, man. These motherfuckers are beating the fuck out of each other. It becomes fake when there's two guys who respect one another, who know that they can make a lot of money if they do a match together. But like the rest of the time, it's like these dominating forces who run these things. And depending on who comes in, they'll just fucking smash these people. It's crazy. There's a great episode on The Last of the Von Erichs. If you're somebody who watched the movie The Iron Claw, this was excellent and, just gave a little bit of extra insight. It was kind of like watching a little documentary after the movie, and I've seen the movie recently enough, so that was kind of cool. Another one of the, what is this? Gorgeous Gino? The Mysterious Death of Gorgeous Gino. That one wasn't like a favorite of mine, but very interesting too. Gorgeous Gino's an interesting dude. He was a popular character. Gino Martino? I'm going to get his last name wrong. But cool, he seemed to have been executed and, was maybe involved in some shady shit. But I mean, he was executed in his house, sitting on his couch, like probably killed by somebody he knew, which is nuts. The final episode of the first season is on the fabulous Moolah. And, ooh, man, that is an interesting one because there were all sorts of allegations about Moolah basically acting as a pimp to the cadre of female wrestlers who she was running. And Moolah, like, oof, dude, she's a nightmare woman. Like, she wasn't like a particularly pretty lady. She was, so many of these people, they made their bones on being awful, on being these fucking people that people love to hate and wanted to see shit go down. And they'd be cruel and doing things. And then on top of it, these wrestlers will have like a lot of ego. And then other people will be coming up, and they want to have a piece of the spotlight too. And these people will push them down because they don't want to be overshadowed by them. And Moolah was definitely an interesting case of, she's kind of responsible for like the female wrestler as a genre to some degree. She's a major reason why, there's representation in that world. At the same time, though, you speak to some of these people and they'll say she held back women's wrestling for fucking 40 years because she didn't want to be usurped by anybody. The case of Moolah is really an interesting one. I really enjoyed that episode. And then in the second season, it's like I said, the first opening is the Chris Benoit story. I've watched so much stuff about that stuff, and I just generally knew that this TV show was going to take the path of, he killed that he did do it, and it was exactly the way it was. I didn't want to hear any of that. I didn't want to hear any of that bullshit. I've investigated thoroughly myself, and there's too much weirdness to make any sort of clear determination. And my instincts say that he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And what a fucking awful way. What an awful way to kill somebody and frame them for murdering their own wife and child. And especially when that, on all accounts, seems like the complete antithesis of the type of person that Chris Benoit really was. That his whole story makes me feel so yucky. But, oh boy, the first episode for me of the second season was the life and crimes of New Jack. And holy shit, I had heard about New Jack a little bit. Like I said, I've got some really good friends who are big wrestling fans. Shout out to my buddy TJ Serrani. And I seem to remember TJ telling me about New Jack ages ago. Because I think I was asking him about ECW and some of these underground wrestling things, and he was explaining how they came up or how they became popular. And New Jack basically made his bones being a hooligan leaning into the sort of aesthetic of black criminality that was going on at that time. If you've seen the movie New Jack City, which is all about criminality in the fucking urban community or whatever you want to call it, essentially that was what was going on. And New Jack and one of his buddies, they talk about how if the audience wasn't shouting the N-word, they were doing something wrong. They needed these people to feel so comfortable as to be shouting that out. Because that was what was clicking. What was clicking was they were real hooligans, and they're in the Midwest and whatnot, and just they're exemplifying whatever pushback there is against the black community for this sort of criminality that's coming out of that world. Which, hey man, the fucking black community has been inundated with fucking criminality in their music on purpose since the fucking 90s, after the record labels bought into the prison industrial complex, had a big meeting with all of the friggin' writers and producers, and told them, you guys are going to help us keep the prisons clean. There are now 2, maybe 3 whistleblowers who were there that night for that meeting that literally caused that whole thing. So I mean, it's such a fucking shame, the way everybody's manipulated so easily. But playing on that whole aesthetic of what was going on in the music world, of the glorification of all this criminality, New Jack came to prominence big time in the ECW thing. And this motherfucker did not give a shit. Holy fuck. I mean, granted, they're getting rewarded for going over the top, but guys, I mean, there's this one young kid, they didn't know how fucking young he was, some new kid, and because of a couple stupid things, fucking New Jack cut open his face. He did all these stitches on his fucking forehead. Granted, they cut themselves so they can bleed. These are things that you'll learn of one of the tricks. You cut your forehead and then you'll start bleeding, and oh look, man, it's getting really hectic in there. So, I mean, these guys are injuring themselves for the sake of the show, but, it's not exactly real. But within the case of fucking New Jack, man, dude, he was really seriously hurting people. And, man, listening to him talk about it, he don't sound like he gives a fuck. I mean, when he talks about, what would the New Jack movie be? And he's like, it'd be me in a wheelchair, snorting a bunch of cocaine. Some shit. I mean, he had multiple fucking lawsuits, multiple situations where you were just holy fuck, he just stabbed that guy 9 times. Not cut his forehead a little bit. He pulled out some sort of knife and stabbed the man 9 times. Holy fuck. And I mean... I was like, Laura, go watch All About New Jack. Let's reward him for the... I'm sorry. These situations exist. These circumstances exist that allowed a man like fucking New Jack to go in and fucking really wreak some fucking havoc. And it's worth your time to go watch the train wreck that is the life and crimes of New Jack. Also, favorite episode from this series. I'd heard about this so much before. The Brawl for All. The Brawl for All, man. And this will be, mostly I'll kind of wrap everything up, from here, because there's no reason to tell you about all of them. But I want to just give you a little bit enough of a hook of man, there's just so many cool stories that come out of here. The Brawl for All, in particular, was a really, really interesting moment in wrestling history. There was this new guy who came in. I'm forgetting his name, Russo. I think it was something Russo. And he didn't really know anything about like wrestling. He wasn't like a wrestling fan. He was responsible for the Attitude Era. He was the one who basically had Jerry Springer on in the background all the time while they were working on scripts for WWE during the Attitude Era. And somewhere along the way, essentially, this guy got really pissed off because he heard one of the wrestlers, whose names I'm going to forget right now because he's not really a particularly famous wrestler, talking shit in the locker room about how if this shit was real, he would fuck up everybody. This guy could personally handle everybody. He would beat everybody up if it was real, right? And Vince Russo, he hated this motherfucker and hated the arrogance of him going, I'm going to beat everybody. So he literally just kind of thought about wanting to see this motherfucker get beaten up. And he goes to Vince and he goes, what if we did a tournament and made it real? Let's really have these guys fight. Go blow for blow, toe to toe. Let's get them in there. Winner takes all, da-da-da-da. And I mean, they had like a little bit of plan for this. A guy named Dr. Death, who was supposed to be the guy that they were figuring was going to win. But of course, nothing in the Brawl for All went as planned. This was like a 3-4 week, lead up as like they were doing this tournament and slowly cracking guys off. And one after another, it wasn't exactly going the way they were imagining it was going to go. And they ended up having a crazy surprise winner that they didn't fucking know what to do with after he won because they didn't expect him to fucking win in the first place. The Brawl for All ended up embarrassing and ending the careers of multiple wrestlers, some of them through major injuries and some of them just from their credibility. All of a sudden, wrestling wasn't a preconceived, end result anymore. All of a sudden, they just threw these guys in there who were not professional boxers, were not professional MMA fighters. They were bodybuilders they were wrestlers. They were people who were a little bit more of a mixed sort of athlete. And now all of a sudden, they had to go and fight. And a bunch of them got shown up in such a dramatic way that it affected their careers permanently. The Brawl for All turned out to be basically the single worst fucking choice the WWE ever made. And there's a great guy in there, Jim Cornette, I think his name is, who, you'll recognize some of these guys if you watch wrestling at all as managers, and a lot of the managers are bookers and people who are a little bit more involved behind the scenes. And Cornette, he's very involved in so many different aspects of wrestling, and he loves it. He really cares about it as a meaningful source of entertainment and a pursuit in life. And I really appreciated him. I appreciate he was in most of the episodes, Cornette, and as a person who has a deep appreciation for comic books, a deep appreciation for toys that other people don't always have. I really appreciated him fucking cursing out Vince Russo in his interview and whatnot, and just talking about how damaging this was to the sport. And the only reason why it was able to be brought to the forefront like that in the first place was because Vince Russo didn't give a shit about wrestling. He wasn't handling it like it was something that mattered and needed to be protected in some way or another. And Jim Cornette, he's more my kind of guy. He's a real geek who loves wrestling. He's a wrestling geek. So I love seeing Jim Cornette. So this season of the show is filled with more. You've got the Jimmy Snuka situation with his girlfriend who died. Seems pretty likely Snuka killed his girlfriend and freaking Vince McMahon helped him cover it up. Like I said, I didn't say, but I knew that story pretty well, so I actually didn't bother to watch that one again, because especially too, because for me, I think he's a murderer, and I was like, don't tell me the story again about how the murderer got away with it, because I don't like to hear that. The assassination of Dino Bravo. Oh, and you know what? I think I'm actually confusing the assassination of Dino Bravo with the mysterious death of gorgeous Gino Hernandez. I'm like kind of mixing them together. I'm not sure which one is which, but lot of death, a lot of mysterious deaths in the fucking wrestling world. You got David Schultz and the slap herd round the world. That was a great one. This is a really great story, and I don't want to give it away completely, but there was a guy who was, I guess, basically the first person that Hulk Hogan threw under the bus as soon as he had an opportunity with Vince McMahon. Hulk Hogan rose up with this guy, David Schultz, who ended up basically being put into a position where he was being interviewed by this, reporter who was basically blowing the whistle on the whole, sort of behind the scenes of wrestling and how things were done. And he slapped this guy twice in an interview. And then Vince McMahon basically treated him like persona non grata and eventually like cut him out of the roster, screwed him over in a ton of different ways. And flash forward a few months later, there's a famous story, much more famous story, where Hulk Hogan and Mr. T go on, I forget the guy's show, but he was a person, he had like a talk show, and this guy didn't really think much of wrestling. He was being a little insulting, he was kind of laughing in their face, and Hulk Hogan does a demonstration of a headlock on him and puts him to sleep. And as soon as he falls asleep, he just lets him go onto the studio floor, which the studio floors are usually cement. And he hit that floor really hard and cut his head open. And dude was very, very upset. Of course, nothing happened to Hulk Hogan. But this other guy who had been put into this position, who had previously been a guy who was helping Hogan's star to rise, his whole career got fucking destroyed because of this whole incident. Episode 8 was Cocaine and Cowboy Boots, which was awesome. A really little upstart wrestling league that featured... Mankind, Mick Foley, who's a good friend of my family's. Love Mick Foley. What a great guy he is. Mick Foley narrates some of these episodes, and he's interviewed in a couple different episodes of the show. I love Mick. Always like seeing him. He's a really good man. And oh my God, this guy, Herb, I think his name was, he was a big wrestling fan, and he had this whole idea about putting on this big show, and he got money together initially. He seemed very well liked. But he was just a fucking cokehead and coke and prostitutes and running around naked is basically what you have happen over and over and over again with this Herb guy on this thing. Like I said, these stories are fucking insane. You can't make these things up. The last 2 episodes that I watched tonight, right before I did this show, was the last ride of the Road Warriors, which was awesome. If you know the Road Warriors as the Legion of Doom, it was really cool to hear their story. Hawk had some demons, but again, he was really seemed to be really beloved by so many of the members of the community, which makes it that much more tragic that he passed away. And his partner, Animal, you basically get so much of the story told through him and to them. And man, they got such a great gimmick, the fucking Road Warriors and the Legion of Doom. Hearing just how they figured out their gimmick and all these different things that they figured out along the way was excellent. And then hearing later things that had happened, like friggin' Hawk going to Japan and replacing Animal with a Japanese guy in fucking shoulder pads, like the Legion of Doom was wearing at the time, and Animal going like, dude, that's our fucking gimmick. Like, it's like, whoa. Oh, like, you feel for Animal, especially that he's doing this interview and he's talking about Hawk relatively in kind terms. And meanwhile, dude did that. He just fucking left them and fucking took their gimmick and brought it to Japan by himself and did it by himself. Ugh, that was upsetting to hear. But their story was really interesting, and hearing so much of this begins with just building them up and hearing the origin of how they came about and like how they got their break, and those stories are all interesting. And then of course hearing how it all fell apart after that is pretty cool too. The unfortunate last episode that I watched of the second season is the final days of Owen Hart. I have a lot of questions about Owen Hart's death myself, and I almost didn't watch that one too because I was like, I know a lot about that. But I like Owen Hart. I like the Harts. I like the Hart family, the Hart Foundation, and their whole group. It's insane. Freaking Bret Hart, like all these guys, brother-in-laws and brother, and all these family members who are there. There's a picture of Bret Hart with surrounded by 5 or 6 guys who are all famous wrestlers, and every single one of them is dead now except for him. And every time I see that picture, I just go, oh, this poor fucking guy. I mean, I want to cry right now. It's like, oh, his fucking brother, his fucking sister's husband, his other sister's husband, fucking, just too much loss. It's like what you feel when you see Iron Claw, or the stuff there. Even though, the Iron Claw brother who survived, he really had some wise words about it all and put it into some good perspective. But listening to Owen Hart's son and daughter, who barely ever got to meet him, talking about him and what a great guy he is, and seeing what they've done in his name afterwards, and just getting to find out about his career and see he was a cool dude. Listen to Chris Jericho, who was interviewed on the thing quite a bit, talk about what a big fan he was of Owen Hart. And Owen Hart, he was pointing out that Owen Hart was like this acrobatic wrestler before anybody else was. And I can remember some of that. I loved the Hart Foundation, Owen Hart, the Anvil, Neidhart, and I loved them. I liked the pink and black. My dad's colors were pink, so that really drew me in a little bit, just from colors alone. But Bret was cool. His whole family was cool, and so much of why they were so cool was because they could fucking bring it, man. They were strong and athletic and powerful, and it was cool. And Owen was cool, man. He could flip around and backflip off somebody's back, and really all sorts of cool moves that you see today a lot when you watch wrestling. And people like Jericho, they learned it from him. And I promise you will not get through Dark Side of the Ring without shedding a few fucking tears. I mean, it's really crazy. And there's so many stories, beyond this. I really want to continue to watch the rest of the series because I haven't been able to see the whole thing. But, the Brian Pillman and, stories from across the pond and in Japan, and crazy stories that you might not have heard of. The Dynamite Kid, Chris Canyon. Some of these are famous names that you might remember. Rob Black, steroid trials. There's so many different stories throughout this time. Throughout this industry. It's just, there's so many regions, and there was so many stories that were sort of like crazy stories going on in sort of the building of the community of wrestling in the first place. And in the building of the community of wrestling, it was the fucking Wild West, man. It was crazy. So there's all sorts of nutty people doing nutty things to get their fucking notoriety. And then then it gets a little bit more sterile and formatted or whatever. I don't know. Just a little bit as the WWE becomes a respectable business. Those stories become fewer and more far between of some of the early day stories. But just still, there are so many. And, people like Adrian Adonis or the Junkyard Dog, Abdullah the Butcher. I posted yesterday, Bam Bam Bigelow. Oh, man, Bam Bam Bigelow. I hate his story. There are so many fucking wonderful and wonderfully awful stories about all of these guys. You're going to see a lot of really gnarly looking foreheads. I posted on my Instagram yesterday a close-up of fucking New Jack's forehead, which New Jack was one of the guys fucking cutting open his forehead every other night, so that he would be bleeding and the match would be really good or whatever. And, the forehead, the scar tissue on the forehead, that fucking Abdullah the Butcher, there's so many of them. You look at their foreheads and you're like, what the fuck happened to this poor bastard? And injuries, that just made me think of fucking injuries in general. New Jack in particular, I mean, this is the one fucking punishment that this motherfucker gets was he had a guy who he was wrestling, that he used to wrestle relatively often, and they were supposed to go do a move off of throw each other off of a cage or something like that. And right before they're about to do it, the guy says, I can't do it. I can't do it. And New Jack just goes, shut the fuck up, motherfucker. We're going right now. In 3, 2, 1. And he just does it. Well, that wasn't a smart move for New Jack. This guy does like a flip and lands on his skull. And to this day, he's got major fucking problems. And I mean, he was out for a very long time. And then when he came back, he was wrestling this guy and he basically set out to get revenge on him. I mean, only, I guess, because basically the guy didn't call him the whole time he was out. And he was like, you never fucking call me, motherfucker. Never say a fucking word to me. And he threw him off of this really, really high thing. He crashed through some tip. This guy could have easily died. I think he busted his ankle from this fall. But New Jack says, with a completely straight face, no irony, I was trying to kill that motherfucker. I was trying to kill him. Wish I did. I don't know if he said wish I did. I think he said something close to that. I mean, insane, that fucking New Jack guy. You gotta watch that New Jack episode. It's just nuts, man. So, I think we can end it here. There's 6 seasons, 60 episodes that are available. And then beyond that, I am about to start watching what's called Dark Side of the Ring Confidential, which is a whole other show. Like I said, it's not necessarily the show. The show is fine. The show is a documentary show about the world of professional wrestling. And guys, it does not get more interesting, more compelling than the world of professional wrestling. I can't recommend it enough. Somehow, I'm going to have to put it in the title, even if you don't like wrestling, fucking watch the show. I'm probably going to put that in the description. Anyway, I'm Jesse Blaze Snyder. Thanks for listening to the show. Every Monday, I do a show called Everything They Don't Want You to Know, which is my esoteric wisdom show, teaching hermetic principles, but also teaching about things like fucking chemtrails and geoengineering, and then why homework is a fucking, not a drag, a slavery, a piece of our slavery that we've been given. The American people, homework. All around the world, we're being held by homework. Fuck you, homework. There's a lot of really awesome episodes that you can find. This has replaced my Monday show of All Your Favorite Bands Suck, which I'm going to be bringing back in the next few months. I just haven't got around to reformatting it so I can get into the good graces of Spotify, which are the ones who canceled us. But everywhere but Spotify, you can find All Your Favorite Bands Suck. There's 55 of my favorite bands. Just go take a look at the list of all the names of the bands. And if any of those bands are a band you want to get into, listen to the show, and I'll just give you a little bit of guidance of start here and listen to that and play a bunch of clips. Anyway, my comic book that I'm working on right now for Blacklight District Studios, my publishing company, is an anthology magazine similar to Heavy Metal. I got my buddy Aaron Sparrow, my buddy Digger Mesh, and a lot of my other great talented artist friends working on this thing. And it's going to be one part anthology comic book and then also a bit of a cool magazine for creative people. And I'm really, really excited. We're going to be starting to promote this and really get the ball rolling in the next 2 months. And then it's going to go live on Kickstarter, I don't know, sometime in July or something like that, or June. Yeah, it's called Sugar and Bones Magazine. You can find it through Kickstarter, and you can sign up for notifications, or you can just go to bldsts.com, and you can sign up for notifications right there. And you can even pick up some back issues of King of Kings or Fucking for Our Future, which was the last books that we did. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Thanks for listening to the Saturday episode, and I hope you'll join us again on Wednesday for another fucking awesome episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. Love you guys. Peace.
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snyder. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part. Isn't that heavy? I played that. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Coolest alive. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Stay with your tribe. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Revenge of the Geeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Week after weeks. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Laughing with you. It's gonna be fucking awesome. And crying sometimes too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Spelling it out. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Making you shout. I'm a genius. I got lyrics coming out me bum for days. You like that? It's a kazoo solo. I played that too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Talking some shit. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Living the shit. My voice is fucking awesome. Foot in our mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right on text. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome. It's starting soon. Straight to the top of the awesome. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's going to be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
The podcast playground. Hooray!